What's up, Julian Dorey podcast fans? My name's Travis Chappell, and today I am your guest host for the show. What you're about to listen to is a snippet that's been pulled from my full-length, almost 2-hour conversation with Julian Dorey at his studio in Jersey. And let me tell you, we go all over the place in this conversation, from OnlyFans to poverty to the economy to the election and everything in between. So if you are a fan of Julian, you will definitely enjoy this conversation that I had with him. So in the meantime, please check out this 20-25 minute segment. And if you enjoyed this, then be sure to go search Travis Makes Friends either on YouTube or whatever podcast app you're listening to this on, and you'll be able to find the full episode with Julian there. And please forgive me, I'm not in my normal studio. I am out traveling right now, so you're seeing the airport behind me, and potentially, if you're just listening to airport announcements in the background. So I promise this is not normally how I do things, but hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Anyway, appreciate you. Love you all. Please check out this episode and then go listen to the full one over on Travis Makes Friends.
I remember when I first listened to Joe Rogan, he would have these long conversations with all different people, just like I like doing. And they'd be off the cuff and real, and you felt like you were at the table with them.
Does anybody tell you no? Does anybody go, Elon,
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. Terrible.
I always knew I wanted to do that. Why do people listen to me 100 times more than they listen to some celebrities who start podcasts with 100 million followers? It makes no sense at all, but it's because there is something about in this space, in the space of conversation and people talking, especially over the long form, where people want genuine, real things.
When you started the show, was it always going to be interviews?
Well, I always say this, I've never interviewed anyone in my life.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Travis Makes Friends podcast, where it's our mission to help you stop being lonely and make more friends. In an effort to do that, I'm showing you how I go about making some of the friendships in my life. So today, I'm making friends with Julian Dorey. Julian is a podcaster just like me. He's based out here in New Jersey in Hoboken, which is actually where we're recording this episode. And he has been interviewing people for the last 4 or 5 years or so and has amassed almost 900,000 YouTube subscribers doing so. He talks everything from to people like spies, to conspiracies, to Area 51, and everything in between. So it's going to be a fascinating conversation. Julian, what's up, dude? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for coming out here, and thank you for having me on, Travis.
Yeah,
of
great,
course,
man. Of course. So listen, man, I want to go back in time. And the idea is basically like, hey, the show's called Travis Makes Friends. Let's just talk like, hey, we just met, which we just did, and we're just having a friendly conversation, getting to know each other. So let's go back in time, bro. Talk to me about 9-year-old Julian. Set the scene. Ooh. Where were you? What were you doing? What was life like?
You're going way back.
Way back.
9-year-old Julian.
Throwback.
I don't know if anyone's ever asked me about that on a podcast before. I got to actually think about this now. 9-year-old Julian. So I was an only child, which has certainly some great benefits, and then also, you know, some downside with that too, like having to figure some things out on your own.
Sure.
But as a 9-year-old, I think I was more or less like I was at a transitional period, I was about to change schools right then and get into a whole new group of people after having my own friend group established. So that was certainly a shift over. But I probably had my earliest aspirations at that point of being like an ESPN Sports Center anchor.
Okay.
At the time, I think that I had that dream at that point because I was a diehard sports fan, but I was very vicariously going through life.
Was this Jersey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up in South Jersey, outside Philly. I don't know if I used the word vicariously right there, so hopefully that made sense. But, you know, I grew up in West Deptford, so that was about 10, 15 minutes from Center City, Philly.
Okay.
And then when I was like 11, I moved to Mullica Hill, which was like 10 minutes, 15 minutes south of West Deptford. And that's actually where I ended up launching the podcast. So fast forward, because that was my parents' house, and that's where this thing started when I moved back down there. But yeah, as a 9-year-old, I was pretty wide-eyed, trying to figure out the world, not knowing a lot of things. And
what did your parents do?
My dad is an attorney.
Okay.
He does like commercial litigation.
And has been your whole life?
Yeah. He loves what he does. Absolutely loves it. But he does like everything from a contract dispute to going in for, you know, some sort of like major corporate lawsuit, really all across the spectrum, anything that's not criminal. Like he never wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But my mom was a lot of different things. She was a teacher at a really, really good public school when I was born, and she left that behind to raise me, which I'm extremely, extremely appreciative of. And then by the time I was like 9 or 10, you know, obviously I'm going to school during the day. So she was a major fitness person and became a personal trainer.
Okay.
Actually co-owned a gym for like 5 minutes, which is a really
No way.
bad business. I'm sure that was just a tax write-off, but she ended up turning that into like this really fun thing where she turned the basement of our house into a mini gym after they got out of that gym she had been in, and would just train like her friends as clients there. And, you know, I guess again,
always
like
teaching.
Teaching, make a little income. But she was also at the time became a professor at the community college in English and public speaking. So, you know, that kind of like allowed her to, like you said, always teaching, keep that itch going. And it was something she could do like during the school day while I wasn't around. And then, you know, she was raising me the rest of the time, which was certainly a lot.
Yeah. Even if it's only one, it's still a lot.
Yeah. Well, I was torture, so it's a lot with me.
What are some of the, like at that time, did you have any desire to have siblings? Like, did you look at other families and like, why don't I have a brother or sister?
I mean, did I have the thought? Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think you want to have people that, if you're not the oldest, they could show you the ropes, or if you're the oldest, you can kind of bounce ideas off somebody. And I come from big families. On my mom's side, she was one of 6 girls, and I have 18 cousins over there.
Jeez.
So, you know, I was used to a lot of people in that way. Yeah. And we were the only family that only had one. But that's not how my mom wanted it. She had like 16 or 17 miscarriages or something like that,
wow.
which is obviously
a wild amount of miscarriages.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think it was up in that area.
She sounds like a savage, bro.
My mom is definitely one of a kind, but you know, it worked out with me. So all the chips,
the lucky one.
That's really how you should look at it. But all the chips were in that basket. And like I said, there's real benefits to this too. I would say one of the things is I didn't have to take on student debt. If I had siblings, I would have had to do that. Yeah. So like that to me is like winning the fucking lottery. But
anymore, that's definitely true.
Absolutely. I mean, I see this and some of my friends who still have it, you know, trying to pay it. It's crazy how bad that gets. But yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted them, but it just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah,
you know,
that stuff's crippling anymore. You know what I mean? The student debt and everything.
Absolutely.
This is the first time that 30-year-olds are worse off than their parents were when they were 30. First time in American history.
You know what? I hadn't thought of it that way, but that is absolutely true across every economic benchmark without even looking at it.
Home ownership, living by yourself, you know, autonomy.
Things cost so much too.
Yeah. And it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
Every bill that we have, like all of our like quote unquote fixed expenses.
Yeah.
They just keep inching up. And when you look at it across 12 bills, it's like, oh, that makes a significant, you know, difference in your like monthly nut that you got to cover. It's like, man, that's these little tiny increases might be tiny for that one bill, but combined, they're all making an impact.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because like obviously I made no money doing this for the longest time, and then when
I wonder what that's like.
It's interesting, bro. I mean, you understand the business, so you know what it is, but it's like when I actually then did have some money, I was amazed at how little I had left over to spend on basic things.
Well, like you hear, Well, and how old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay, so I'm 32. So we're,
same area.
Yeah. We grew up thinking like you crack 6 figures, you're good. You know what I mean? Like you're golden. Like 6 figures is like cool. You can live in comfort. You can experience upper middle class with 6 figures. Now it's like 6 figures is like, especially bottom, like 100K is becoming lower middle class,
especially based on where you live,
especially if you live somewhere that's not cheap to live.
Right.
You think it's going to be okay. And then all of a sudden you look at your outgoing and your income and you're like, whoa, what's happening? How is this possible?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of young people out there, especially young men, that are like disenfranchised from that because they did all the things that they were supposed to do.
Yes.
Like they got the schooling, they got the degree, they are working their asses off at a job they don't like, they're paying their dues, and then they look up and they still can't afford anything. And housing's only getting more expensive, interest rates are through the roof. And it's like, well, what do I do about this? Yeah. Like, how can I possibly make something of myself in this like type of climate. You know what I mean?
And they're stuck looking at social media where the things are made to look perfect, or
Absolutely.
this is what you, at all times, you are one flick of the face recognition of your phone away from seeing everything that's great.
The highlight reel.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if it's not true, that's what you see.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and it makes you lose hope, you know?
The 0.1% is now in your face every day.
Yes.
All the time. You know what I mean? Like you open up TikTok or Instagram, you see these people. It's like, well, that person's 27, and how are they? And they're doing this, and blah blah blah. And you get in your head about it.
Yes.
When you realize that, like, we're talking about the 0.1% here. Like, everybody refers to the 1%. I think that there's a massive misconception around who is actually in the 1%. Like 1% is only the top 1% in the country is like, I say only, but only like $450,000 a year or something like that. Which
even seems high.
Which isn't like, only. I know that most people would be like, I would definitely trade my income for that.
I know exactly what you mean.
But typically you think top 1%, you're thinking, hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's like, that's not true. It's the 0.1% that's in your face all the time, because they're the ones that are creating all the content. They're the ones that are going, they're sitting ringside at UFC, paying, 15, 18 grand for a seat. And, you're making that every 6 months.
That's right. And it's really, the disparity is crazy. It's when you look at those charts, I remember Dr. Steven Pinker had an amazing chart, I think in his book Enlightenment Now, when I read that like 5 or 6 years ago, where it shows like the splitting that really happened starting mostly in the 80s, where the difference between the upper echelon of society and the quote unquote middle class, which is becoming less and less middle class, just goes into a V.
Yep.
And his book was actually about all these amazing positive trends in the world, which I like. But he was saying this is actually one where, it's not necessarily as fully bad as it looks, but it's certainly creating some sort of disparity we're going to have to reckon with in society, because you'll see people out there right now. I mean, you see it like in the electorate whenever people are talking about any type of election now, so much comes back to the economy, because the differences of, no disrespect, but like the dude who lives in one of those buildings in New York with 75 million in cash in the bank account and stocks, has very different priorities from the guy who's got the small business he's been running for the last 10 years, living in, North Dakota.
Right.
And I respect where people are coming from when they feel like that. I mean, it's kind of cliche to say it, but the American dream, so to speak, some people feel like it's dead. I don't think it's dead, but I understand it's harder.
It's seemingly dying.
These days.
Like the middle class. The middle class is the American dream. Like, people, I think, sometimes position the American dream as like, go make your billions.
Yep.
But really, the American dream is the middle class. Like, America kind of invented that. Yes. You know what I mean? The fact that you could make 50, 60 grand a year, have a house. By the time you pay off your mortgage in 30 years from now, there's a bunch of equity built in that house. Yep. You have your 401k, you have some social security, maybe you have a pension, whatever, and you can live the rest of your life without having to go to work and things. And that's just becoming increasingly not attainable for a lot of people. And I think our generation is going to feel the brunt of it. And Gen Z coming up behind us is I think they have. It's more clear to them what they have to do. Like, not everybody's coming out of high school being like, I have to go to school, I have to get into college. It's like there's actually a lot of other ways to make money, and better money than what a lot of people coming out of college are getting paid. And so I think the middle class is continuing to shrink, unfortunately, and we're just going to have to decide. Like, our generation is going to have to decide, I don't want to be part of the middle class that keeps getting downgraded to poverty. Right, because that's the problem, is like the middle class is shrinking, but it's not just people moving up to millionaire status; it's also people moving down into poverty status. That's why like you're losing it to both groups. So that's why my other podcast, Travis Makes Money, is all about that, because it's just like, man, I think that as a generation, we're going to have to step up to the plate and just be like, look, the situation handed to us is less than ideal, but it is the situation that we have. So what are we going to do about it? Sitting and whining and complaining about it all the time doesn't do anything to improve your situation at all. You're going to have to just make the decision. And the recognition and the perspective that we still have it better than 99% of the world.
That's right.
Like, just living in the country puts you in the top 1% of the world in terms of income, housing, affordability, the ability to buy food, have access to clean water.
Yep.
I just had my Uber driver last night. I always say Uber, like, because that's like the thing, but I use Lyft more than anything else. Just goes to show
People
you.
get it.
Yeah, first to market owns the market. But my Lyft driver, he was from Ghana. He's been over for 5 years, and we're talking a lot about that because he was talking the whole way about how much there's how much work he has to do to make the money that he makes.
Oh, yeah.
He's got his own barbershop, so he's small business owner. And he was telling me yesterday, he was like, "Man, the snow, nobody came in today." And he's like, "I could have just sat there and whined about it, but instead I just turned on my Lyft, and now I've made like $90 today driving for Lyft." And it was and he was just talking about how go spend a couple months in Ghana, where I'm from, and go look at all the kids that are starving, and then realize that you have really nothing to complain about when you're talking about like, "Oh man, why can't I drive a BMW instead of a Honda?" And it's like,
Right.
okay, well,
First world
champagne problems, man, champagne problems. Not to say that they're not problems, not to say that they shouldn't be addressed, but also recognize the position that we're in, and then we gotta be more proactive is really the bottom line. It's like we're just gonna have to figure out, like, buckle down, figure out a way how to bring in some more income and push to live the life that you actually want to live. And you're not gonna happen into it.
Absolutely. No, it's amazing, Pi. I loved every single thing you said there. And what one of the things you're getting at is perspective too. Mm-hmm. Now, it's very hard, and I understand this is just a human psychological phenomenon. It's very hard to have perspective when something is not literally in your backyard. Yeah. Right? Even today, where we can see things on the internet around the world. If I really wanted to go see what it's like in Ghana to some extent, I could go on to
YouTube it.
Google. Yep. Exactly. I could go. Exactly. So, it doesn't have the same effect though, in a way. And I do think about that sometimes because I don't want to be the, like you said, the champagne problems, crying into the abyss here when other people would kill and do kill to be here. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that you can't try to improve the system. Absolutely. You and I are talking about at home and try to make it amazing and so far ahead in the world so that even more people want to come here because of what it stands for. Yeah. And that's certainly something that we got to reckon with, because you talk about all these kids who are suddenly rejecting some things. Sounds like someone's fucking dying out there. I'm sorry. This is one, like, we have this place so noise proof, but the fire trucks, they will get through. Sorry about that.
Hey,
but you see
it just shows that we're in Jersey.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You got to get the grittiness. But you see all these kids now, ranging from millennials to Gen Z, who are rejecting this plan because, and I talk about this all the time, this plan that was sold to them, like, just without subconsciously, it's just wired into their mind as young men and women, which is, you grow up, you work hard in school, you try to get decent grades, you do okay on the SAT, get into a good enough college, sign that loan when you're 17, go drink, smoke, and fuck, and make sure you study while you're there for 4 years. Yeah. When you get out, try to get a job in a respectable industry, something that's moving forward.
Work hard, pay your dues.
That's right. Pay your dues, work through your 20s, find your person in your late 20s, get married by 30, start popping out kids at 32, saving up in that 401k while you're going along this, and maybe by the time you're 40, you're making that beautiful $150,000 check and rising through the corporate ranks. And once you get there, you say, you know what, I'm going to start playing golf on Saturday morning with the boys just to feel like you're doing something important. But really, you're just trying to get away from your wife that you were convinced you were supposed to fall in love with in your late 20s, because that's what society says you got to do.
Right.
And then as you go along, maybe you get into your 50s, and now they're giving you a plaque on your wall, a nice, little bit better corner office, but you're still sweating about what your retirement's going to look like at 65. Yeah. When you get to 65, you're going to say, well, between Social Security and what I get out of this 401k, I need to make this last. And now we're all living longer, so hopefully this fucking lasts for the next 30 years. And you know what? Maybe I'll get a condo in Florida and sit here and look at the sun and wait to die. Right. And there's just something about that. By the way, perspective says there's people who can do that exact model and be so happy because they're not looking at it as cynically as I just looked at that. And I love that. But there's also the people that look at that and they only felt the need to go through these early parts of the process because society tells them to do that.
Exactly.
And they're starting to wake up to realize, wait, there's not that much here. That's not what I want. And there's other opportunities out there. Let me use the resources I have, be it on the internet or the things at my fingertips, to try to actually get somewhere in life. And that's how you break the chains of, like, breaking out of that lower middle class, or if you will. But there's also, I don't think we should get lost in this. We as a society, all of us, and the younger generations, do have to take some responsibility as well. It can't just all be pointing at the boomers and saying "fuck you" for all this shit.
Well, like, how long are you going to do that?
What do you mean?
Like, how long are you gonna just blame it on?
Yes,
them?
exactly.
It doesn't do anything good for you long term to do it. It's like maybe take a couple of months and whine about it. Maybe take a couple of weeks and whine about it. Whatever. But when it's been a decade and you're still pointing the finger at other people, it's like you can't, like, there's no path forward to that except for cynicism, drugs, alcohol addiction, misery, depression, anxiety. All of those things come from just focusing on all the stuff that's completely outside of your control, that's never going to lead you down a path to anything good. And you feel like justified. You feel entitled to a certain life, upset that you didn't get that life, and then justified to point the finger at somebody else for a really long time until you finally have to, like, at some point, you have to face the music and when you're figure it out.
And when you're doing that and you're pointing the finger, what's the average person doing?
What's that?
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
And this is the reality. Like, I monetize making content, right?
Yeah.
You know what I love about my content? It's long form so people can stick it in their ears and go about their day and be productive.
Yeah.
It's not a fucking, and it's, I love movies. I think there's a time and place for everything.
Of course.
But we have such an addiction to constant content in our feed.
It's hits of dopamine, man.
Right.
Dopamine's a dangerous drug.
Yeah. And I see people all the time, and I observe it more and more than ever. Like, I have started using AirPods less and less than I ever have. I've started using my phone for non-business less and less than I ever have. Now, when I come home after the gym in the morning and I'm doing business, my phone stays open because I make content. I'm constantly changing files and things like that, making
messaging
calls,
people.
Right. But I like to think, like, I use Instagram like a lot less than the average person. You won't see me going through a fuck ton of stories all the time or anything like that. Like, there's a time and place because you're supposed to be able to get away from this stuff. There's a reason Steve Jobs didn't want his kids owning these things. And so I understand people have grown up with the phone attached to their hand and everything, but some of that addiction, and as you said, very righteously so, feeding the dopamine beast with this and some other things, it's like, at some point, you got to say, all right, maybe if I did less of that, spend an hour less on that a day and an hour more on my dreams over 365 days, that's 365 extra hours maybe that I spent on that. And by the way, I don't say this as a preacher. I say this as someone who still, myself, will even evaluate that and be like, sometimes was I busy after I was doing my tweets that I got to do, looking through other people's tweets I didn't need to?
Totally resonate.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we all have to take, myself included, we all got to take some responsibility for that and, maybe eliminate some of the distractions, or at least, even if you're not going to eliminate them, just limit them.
Mitigate. Yeah.
Yes, mitigate.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, dude, it's a strange time. It's a strange time. And like I said, I think we're going to be the ones that we're going to have to, like, pioneer a way to figure out a different path.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to get a lot of the benefits of the quote unquote American dream that, who knows if Social Security will even be around by the time we're able to collect some of it, even though we're all paying into it. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But yeah, dude, it's a problem, but it's also, we're human. Humans are meant to solve problems, which is why mental health has become a problem in America. We're like the leaders in mental health problems, which is a problem for sure. And I'm not trying to downplay mental health at all, because it's a very real and visceral problem, especially if you're feeling it in the depths of depression or you have high anxiety or whatever. It's like, those are not, things that you can just ignore and be like, well,
that's right.
But somebody else is not getting drinking water. It's like, okay, but it doesn't make the feelings that you're feeling less real. But it is a first world problem. It's like, we've already taken care of so many other problems that now, like I said, we're wired to solve problems. So whenever you don't have any problems, you're going to find more problems, especially if that's what you're focusing on all the time. So you got to get better at learning how to solve the problems rather than just saying that they exist. You know what I mean? Which is sometimes I think it's sometimes gets me in trouble, but the dangers of therapy, again, therapy is really great and probably a lot of people should be doing it, but you can get into this cycle of just like learning why you're a certain way and then blaming it on your parents for so long. And I will say that's one of the things that I've learned being a parent is that, like, no matter how good of a job you try to do as a parent, you will inevitably screw something up. And your kid, no matter how good of a parent you think you are, is going to be 27, pouring out their heart to their therapist, talking about the things that you
My
messed up.
dad did this to me.
Exactly. And it's just like ultimately, okay, like you get dealt the hand, and some people get dealt a really, really, really crappy hand. But also, one of the advantages of having the podcast is I've talked to so many successful people, and almost all of them have had problems in their life that are way worse than the ones that I've ever come across and figured out a way to get around them. Yeah. It's like if somebody else got dealt a crappier hand that you got dealt and figured out a way around it, then like we can too. It just starts with being willing to take responsibility for the situation that you're in. And taking responsibility is not the same thing as taking fault. Like sometimes things happen, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to decide what you're going to do about it. And you can decide to blame that on somebody else. You can just decide to focus on the things that are completely outside of your control, or you can decide to get focused on the things that are within your control and actually do something about it. Yeah,
it's funny you bring this up because I was having a conversation with a close friend of mine over the weekend about this same exact thing where it's like, your parents, even the most amazing parents, aren't perfect.
Yep.
But what ends up happening is we've kind of incentivized in society to focus on only the negatives that our parents did, as if we're going to be these fucking amazing parents that would do a better job in every way. It's not to say some people don't have bad parents. Some people do, for sure. But like my parents were amazing. And yet my mom, I can point to, and I'm not even going to say this out loud, what they are. I can point to a couple different things I really struggle with today that are a direct result unintentionally of like ways that she parented. But my mom was like a fucking amazing mom.
Right.
And I'm never going to sit here and say otherwise. And some fucking shrink isn't going to tell me, well, actually, your mom was raised. Go fuck you.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, we'll deal with our problems. And like, as far as I'm concerned, it's exactly what you said. Some of the things I deal with are a first world problem. And I think that's great. It's not to say you should, when there's things mentally going on upstairs that aren't all in order, it's not to say you should be like, well, fuck you, get over it, like automatically. Like, yeah, like anything else in your health, you should kind of treat that. But you don't have to sit there and wallow in it and make it define you and make it, by the way, I see this all the time with people, a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
That's another thing I do wrong once in a while that I'm totally at fault for.
Well, it becomes part of your identity. Like that becomes kind of the problem is when you're only diagnosing problems is if you're going to treat the problem, you have to be aware that it exists, which is a great reason for therapy to exist. It helps you be aware of and understand the problems that you're experiencing. Like you said, I had a great mom, but there's a couple of things that I struggle with that were a direct result of how she parented me. Okay, great. But what do you do from that point? Like just keep talking about it, like just keep whining to your therapist about it, just keep like I said, for how long? How long is it gonna, it doesn't ever follow to continue down that path because there's no way out of it if you only ever talk about the problem. It's like once you understand the problem, you gotta be willing to do something to take care of the problem, not just sit in the problem and think about it all the time and stew on it and be like, well, if my parents would have done this better, then I would be in this other position. It's like probably true, but who cares? Like it doesn't matter that you have that now. So it's the frame that I always use is it happened, now what?
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, you can recognize that it happened. Again, you can feel bad about it for a second, but you can't live in that forever.
What are we doing about it? Yeah. Right. I saw a quote the other day, I'm going to fuck it up, but I'm going to paraphrase it and then this will get the point across. It was basically like not making a change is making a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was I was like, oh, that's perfect.
I've been going through the rabbit hole of different like philosophical ideas recently. And the one that I can't accept is that idea of determinism, where like everything, basically free will doesn't exist.
Right.
And we're all predetermined to make the choices that we're making and whatever. It's like, I can't get on board for that because I don't find it an effective frame to be able to use to go throughout your life. Like if you just believe that things are going to happen the way they're going to happen, regardless of the choices that I make to change them, then you adopt this really nihilistic. Like I don't understand how determinism does not lead you down a path of nihilism, which is a really, really dangerous place to be.
I agree. I just had Rizwan Virkin here, who's an awesome guy and simulation theorist. And I was like, even at the simplest level, I'm saying to myself, so if I do this right now, it makes no sense. I just threw that across the room. I just decide to do that on the spot. Like the idea that there's not some sort of free will right there, and some fucking entity just controlled me doing that.
Yeah,
I can't get with that.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Well, it takes all autonomy away and makes you feel like no matter what I choose, I am predetermined to be this like lazy piece of shit because that's how I feel and that's who I am, and because my parents raised me to be this certain way. That's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know. And I wish I got a different hand, but those other people, you start pointing the finger and coming up with excuses of why that person was able to figure it out and you can't. Because again, when something becomes part of your identity, it becomes really difficult to act outside of that identity.
Yes.
If you believe something's a part of you, if you believe you're a certain way, it's hard to make choices to change that about you because you just think that's who you are. That's how I am. So, it can be helpful sometimes to diagnose those issues, but if there's not a plan to move forward and get past them, what are you doing?
Preaching to the choir, man. I completely agree.
All right, that's it for this short snippet of my conversation with Julian Dorey. If you want to check out the full episode, which is almost 2 hours long, then be sure to search Travis Makes Friends wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, and you will find the full thing there. Look forward to hearing all of your guys' feedback. And thanks for tuning in.